Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Georgii Speakman. She's the founder and managing director at OUT.LIER. Georgii, welcome to the show.
Hi, babe. Thank you very much. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday to you as well. I'm really excited to have you on the show. You've done a lot of really amazing things, and you're doing a lot of amazing things. But maybe before we get into all that stuff, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. I grew up in Adelaide, South Australia.
Okay, very cool.
So for those that might not be as familiar with Australia or Adelaide, Adelaide is Austin's sister city. So it's around the same number of people, population, around 1.5 mark. But they have an emerging sort of tech scene, but they've also historically made a global footprint in the music scene. So that's where I'm from.
Very cool. So walk me through, you went to university. What did you take and why?
I started out doing a generic degree. So I started doing business communication.
Okay.
And because I wasn't like 100% locked into any specific career as such, but I majored at that point in corporate communications and marketing.
Okay.
And
in Australia, correct?
Yes, in Australia.
Okay.
I started the first year at University of SA, South Australia.
Okay.
And then I moved up to the Gold Coast to a private university called Bond, which is a super, super international university. And it's a university that really attracts clusters of, Swedes or Indians or Japanese or Americans, South Americans. Like it's a very multinational private uni, but you do 3 semesters a year instead of 2, which
very cool.
prepares you for the corporate world. So you do, you're at uni 5 to 6 days a week. You don't have the same breaks, and it's very, very intense. But anyway, so after the business communications degree, I was like, that's great as a foundation.
Yep.
But I'm a creative at heart, so I pursued a film and television degree, and I finished that there at Bond. So I had that double degree, and then later I almost finished a master's in writing, but I moved to America instead, so I didn't end up finishing the last 2 or 3 subjects of the master's.
Interesting.
I just ran out of time.
Fair enough. So walk me through your career and kind of moving to America up until what you're doing now.
Absolutely. So I'm one of those jack of all trades. I'm as equally as much of a creator as I am one that's passionate about business and really enjoys that side of life, and can be really high functioning in terms of organization and all those kinds of things that the typical, in inverted commas, artist or creative might not necessarily be at all.
Right.
So in full transparency, I really struggled to find the balance between my corporate and, my hunger and lust to carve out a successful business career and being very attracted to that trajectory versus where do I find a place for my creative persona? What does that look like? Who am I? Am I the writer, director, producer? Am I the singer, dancer, actor? Because I literally could do and did do all of it. And also obviously a lot of writing, hence the master's in writing.
Sure.
So I dabbled in so much. I did so much acting training. I did so much photography and film behind the scenes. I obviously wrote music and all those kinds of things, as well as always sort of harnessed the full-time business career. I know for a fact that so many of us struggle with trying to find that balance.
Sure.
And I don't want to see it as necessarily selling out, because there were times where I was way more passionate about business, and then I aggressively pursued the acting career because it was working for me. There was one crazy year where I did 3 lead roles in 3 feature films in Australia, which is
cool.
Unheard of, because at that point, this is 10 years ago, we didn't really even have as much of an industry then. It's definitely grown and evolved since. but to have that opportunity was wonderful. And that's when I first came to America, was as an actress, and I signed as we had an agent and manager.
Gotcha.
And I still had always sustained a business career, so I just took time off. So if I needed to take 2 weeks off to do a film, or a month, or 10 days, or whatever, I would do that, but I'd always return to my job. And I was very lucky I had flexible and understanding employers.
Interesting.
But my heart was always set on America.
Okay.
So even when I was 5 years of age, I was talking about moving to the Big Apple or LA, and I remember saying to my parents back then, Mum, Dad, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to live in America, and I'm never going to die.
All right, interesting.
I don't know why. I'm like, I don't know what on earth was going through my head then at 5 years of age, but I think this whole thing of like, I need to get home, like I need to go home.
Fair.
And that being America has always been there. So it's kind of just had the corporate career in management consulting, PR, strategic comms, social digital, all that kind of stuff back in Australia, as well as managing the creative outlet stuff. Had my own PR company for a few years before I moved to America. Came here, did a year in talent agency land at Jeff Berg and Jeff Franklin's
Cool.
agency called Resolution, which was in competition, obviously, with the CAAs and ICMs and WMEs and stuff.
Sure.
Their Chinese investment money fell out. But I treated that year because obviously I significantly took a step back in terms of experience and pay. But I treated it as my internship into the entertainment industry in America. And it was kind of a lot like Entourage.
Sure.
But 100 times worse and not funny. It was a lot of hard work. And
fair.
Crazy. And I kind of realized, okay, well, look, this is a very, very, like we feel that the glamour and the beauty of the entertainment industry, as people that want to have some kind of role in it. You either want to create, or you just want to be at the parties, or whatever it is that turns you on about that industry.
Yeah.
When you actually go into the bowels of it, it's obviously a very, 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 very different reality. So then I was like, well, there's things I like about this structure, this infrastructure, like the agency, land, because it's very, very different to, say, working at a management company versus at a film studio versus whatever. But let me get back to all my digital stuff and all the emergence of all the new wave, influencer industry, and what does that mean? What does the power of influence mean, and where does that going, and what role do the human beings play, and how does social digital come into that, and experiences and events and high touch, activations versus a pay-for-play model and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the proliferation of content and where is that going? So I kind of then went off into that sort of realm, did a couple of great things like launch a brand new company for Rock Nation, Jay-Z's company.
Very cool.
Called Volume 4, which at the time was supposed to be Jay-Z's brand new content studio, but it kind of ended up being more in the high-level brand activation partnership space. And the other job role that I'm probably most proud of was being an inaugural team member of launching the French startup, which is Xavier Niel, who's one of the most successful billionaires in France or Europe.
Very cool.
It was one of his startups.
That's huge.
Yeah, called Black Pills, and I was lucky enough to land the global role, global VP role of brand and marketing strategy for the whole company. So I was obviously based here in LA, but doing a lot of work, and had staff back in Paris as well.
That's cool.
But that's been one of, in addition to like the Go 90s of the world, where you've seen this proliferation of short form content that lives really in app only.
Sure.
So it's this snackable, bite-sized content for millennials. It's meant to be super edgy and all that kind of stuff. And it was very exciting. Obviously seeing a lot of the more traditional companies, whether it's like a Pulse Films or Anonymous Content, really wanting to make moves in this space.
Sure.
But I think after working too many crazy hours for other people's businesses, I was like, well, I think it's time I did my own thing. I've earned my stripes. I've done my 5 or so years here in America. I've built a foundation of relationships and contacts and experience. And now is time, hence the birthing of OUT.LI.ER, which is talent management and entertainment company, which really ideally now combines basically everything I've done in the past.
Yeah, that's very cool. No, it's interesting, and I don't really want to necessarily step too far back into the conversation, but I totally get what you mean by about wanting to live in America, right? As a Canadian,
Yes.
I remember getting off the plane in 2002, and I had been to LA 10, 15, 20 times by that point. And I remember just like walking out of LAX, and it just hit me like, you need to be here. And I don't know what it was.
Right.
And so I've been joking
Yes.
that I've been I've been moving to LA since 2002. And that's a long story. And we don't need to get into that now, but I totally get what you mean. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on one thing, is where I'm going with this point is, I think the people that in LA or New York or some of the bigger US cities don't realize that, sure, the chances of you making it to the top of whatever you're trying to chase are maybe pretty small, but at least the chance is there. Or you can carve out something and you can do what you want.
Yes.
Where in other parts of the
Yes.
country or the world, that just
Limited.
doesn't exist, right?
Enormously. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, interesting.
I am so passionate about LA in that way. You know, for me, it's always felt like home. So just similar to probably your feelings, I definitely had that connection with New York as well.
Okay,
But
interesting.
the thing with New York is I can't cope with the freezing cold weather.
Fair
and I know
enough.
that I wouldn't be able to do that 24/7. I'm a pansy when it comes to, I need the warmth. You know, I like having that burning feeling go through my body, and I need that sun.
Sure.
And so Cali, you know, LA was obviously going to be the spot for me. People I find are very critical of LA.
Yeah.
But you've got to remember, this is what I say, is that, yes, it's okay. So everything in life has a dichotomous nature by
Sure.
principle. You know, we've got, you know, the sun and the moon, night and day, dark and light, good and bad, whatever. We all have good and bad days. People have good and bad energy. On it goes. So when you apply that sort of principle and thinking to a city or just overall the way a sort of country might operate, or a town or a city or a human, you know, LA has this, you know, crazy dichotomous nature, which is the intensity of your capability to earn, uncover, discover, create, you know, your absolute unequivocal dream or
Sure.
set of dreams. There is also the darkness to the city, even though the palm trees are out, the sun is shining, there's, you know, not a cloud in sight most days.
Yeah, fair.
Which always makes it inspiring to get out of bed and like go hiking and do your thing, and attack the day. There's a pressure and a sort of a darkness here because of, and I don't know if it's intrinsically connected to the fact that so many people here are fighting for their dreams.
Yeah.
So when people are not earning their success or seeing the results or their dreams coming to fruition, you know, that there is just this sort of there's this other simmering energy here, which people don't see necessarily, that also makes it really, really difficult and a challenge, and you know, a real struggle for a lot of people. I would say probably for a lot of those people trying to carve out a music career or modeling or acting or something. But the other part to it is that because so many people are so hungry, and so ultimately creative, there is this really open-minded, aggressive, but also collaborative, understanding, also nurturing energy to LA. And where, say, in other parts of the world, like Australia, like where I go home and get comments about LA, like, oh, but, you know, isn't it just so fake? Or isn't, like, everyone, you know, whatever? Isn't it just all, like, celebrities and, like, what's in it for me stuff? I'm like, sure, of course. Like, of course there's that element to LA.
Sure.
But there's also so many people that value, like, health and spiritual evolution and personal growth, because you have to be so strong and so present to yourself and have such a great relationship with yourself if you're going to survive the demands of the entertainment industry or just the general ecosystem of LA.
Yeah. Well, and I also think it pushes you to make yourself better, whatever that means, right? In whatever way you're going. Like you see other people just like hustling and struggling and trying to get forward and help you out, and you help them out. And that was one thing that I didn't realize until I spent a bunch of time down there a number of years ago. And it was, you're just like, you know, maybe none of us will make it, but it doesn't really matter. It's almost like at least you can look back and say, I went for it, and here's what happened, instead of just always wondering, you know? It's interesting.
No, and it's funny because my father just even 2 nights ago, I think I'm sure like for most foreigners that are here, the parents, if you're close to them, want you to come back, right?
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So my father's always like, well, your visa's going to be up again in 3 years, and Georgie, if you haven't made it by then, or this hasn't happened, or that hasn't happened, you're just going to have to come home. Like
Sure.
the threats of it all. It's kind of like, I'm not. Just further to your point, it's not even about this concept of making it, because you could say just me being able to get here in the first place has been an Adelaide South Australian girl's version of success.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you've probably made it many times by that, right?
Right.
Like, yeah,
And
interesting.
it's all relative to somebody's sort of degrees and levels of thinking. But even just being able to get the O1 visa, the alien of extraordinary ability, is one goddamn struggle. And I feel that's been success, like another iteration of success.
Sure,
Just being
fair
able
enough.
to get the visa in the first place to be able to stay here, let alone anything else. So, you have to remember to be good to yourself if
Sure.
you're going to be here.
That's awesome.
I see a lot of my friends have very high expectations of themselves, and the fact they should have their own TV show by now. They should be doing all these different things, but it's kind of like you just gotta enjoy the day-to-day experience of being here.
100%
as well.
agree. So walk me through what you're doing now, because you guys, like you mentioned, you're doing a ton of stuff, and it's really interesting, and you're creating a bunch of content. But walk us through what you're doing now.
Yes, absolutely. So I've always been super passionate about this cross section of the creative artist executive in the sort of entertainment, tech innovation, disruptive media space.
Sure.
So I started a podcast called the People Series, just as a casual, conversational outlet for myself.
Very cool.
Like a few years back or whatever. But obviously when I started OUT.LIER, I rebranded it as OUT.LIER TV. So I have this, content platform or radio show in partnership with Dash
Very cool.
Radio on Dash Talk X, OUT.LIER TV, which does exactly that, profiles artists, creatives, executives across entertainment, tech innovation, disruptive media. And that's become very much the premise of OUT.LIER, my talent management and entertainment company. I've obviously been really, really, always very, very passionate about the human, whether that's been studying the character in an acting craft.
Sure.
Or when I started, my first job was a senior level consultant in a management consulting capacity, where I was selling, pitching, positioning, networking with high level executives in industry. So now the iteration of OUT.LIER is really combining the new talent economy, which is that covering music, film and television, but also innovation and tech and that whole startup culture, and anything just in the content media space is a passion. So I've got a handful of talent. I've got one guy that's sort of an innovation influencer who I believe Chris Denson.
Yeah, very good guy.
Very passionate about Chris. A wonderful, wonderful person. Very passionate about Chris. I really, really believe in him. I do believe he's a creative genius. He's a best-selling author. He's obviously got a very, very successful podcast called Innovation Craft with just under 1 million subscribers.
I've actually had him on the
worldwide.
show, and I'm going to have him again in the coming months, or coming weeks, I should say.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes. And, he's a great, fun talker.
Yeah.
But, he's obviously, all about him, but it's him being an award-winning innovation marketer and a bunch of other things, and a natural comedian and all that. I mean, he's a great human. So we've been working on a bunch of different projects. He's very talented at generating lots of very interesting collaborations and opportunities for himself. So that's sort of my main innovation business, entrepreneur, human that I represent, but the rest are really all in music.
Okay.
I've got producers and like a hip hop duo, a young a rapper, an alternative artist that's, a singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist and visual artist, who's been writing with, he was at Dr. Dre's house the other night writing until 5 a.m, but he's been collaborating with different artists like King Mez, who's actually signed to Dr. Dre, and lots of other great people, and his own sound and music is incredible. Got a very talented producer in sort of the hip-hop, trap, Afrobeats arena. And then my most recent signing has been Georgii Jackson.
Oh, very cool.
He's a Grammy-nominated winning songwriter himself, but he's also the founder and CEO of Sarai Music Group. And Georgii has kind of neglected his songwriting career, his own personal one, because he's been writing for the talent of his own company.
Ah,
The Sarai Music Group's just moved out of Capital and under Sony. And so we've just been aggressively hitting the pavement this week with a bunch of different companies to help him, scale his personal songwriting career now. But so that's a little portfolio of talent. I want to kind of keep it small.
sure.
But we're also getting into, with Chris and Chauncey, we've got scripted and unscripted TV projects, so as well as a lot happening in the brand and innovation arena. There's also, and music, there's also, a bunch happening in the film TV space as well, which is exciting.
No, that's really great. So how do you come up with fresh and current content? Because that in itself is really, really challenging.
Do you mean for my personal show or with my talent?
Well, I guess a bit of both, right? Because it's probably in some cases easier to do it for other people than yourself. Have you found that?
100%. I'm like the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like the worst with my own content. I'm like terrible. I've got people going, I've got all these ideas for your show. I'm like, great. Be the producer, run with it, because I don't have time. I'm better at coming up with ideas and having a vision for others, of course, than I am for myself. I think a lot of people are like that.
Sure.
Look, I think this is an overused term, but like having worked a lot in the influencer space and looking at where these relationships lie between brands and human beings, and all that kind of stuff, and this concept of, authenticity and, influencers having an authentic voice in their social landscape and with their fan base and in their community and ecosystem. I think the same principle is always going to apply to content. It has to be the authentic voice and extension of that human being's, universe. No one can do innovation and in the same way that Chris Denson does and can,
Yep,
for example, because of his trajectory in brand and like making sure that you're extracting and staying true to the very essence of his voice and all that kind of stuff. And I would say the same applies to Chauncey. When he's written a scripted television show that's kind of like a Star meets Entourage meets 7 Seconds, because it's got depth and humanity in the TV show. But on the unscripted side, for example, we've now had interest in certain groups wanting to do a reality TV show around Chauncey's whole career, because he came up through the Clive Davis. He's still young. He's younger than me, but he's been in the industry for a really long time and written, for Babyface and Tony Braxton and Jessica Simpson and Kelly Rowland and known a lot of these big names in business for a long time, and has had from his very early stages of his life and then evolving his career into Sarai Music Group as a CEO entrepreneur, working with Stacey Bart and lots of other very talented songwriters, singer-songwriters and producers, and all the stories, but not the drama. We're not talking about love and hip hop stuff,
right?
And not that intensity, but just more of the genuine behind the scenes. How has the music industry evolved, and the struggles and battles, whether it's things that have Chauncey's had to face versus a Stacey versus his other talent, like the chemistry, the producer duo, or whoever, Misa, the singer-songwriter. So, again, it's looking at the humanity and the authentic experiences of these people's, what they've endured, and really staying connected to that, the genuine storytelling stuff, versus how do we make something really successful and pop and make lots of money from it, and who cares if anyone sells out? No, that's not what we want to do. But we're hoping that obviously still has success. And I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, I think so.
Well enough.
No, I think it's good. I'm always kind of fascinated. But how do you find these people to actually work with? Because I think in a lot of cases, just landing one of the clients and people you work with would be somebody's dream. And you've seemed to land many of them over your career. So what advice do you give people looking to maybe get in the space a bit? I know you're in a bunch of spaces, but I think in a lot of cases you've kind of created a dream for a lot of people.
Oh, that's cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I haven't proactively gone after anybody, so it's kind of all been very, very, very organic. Chris has been a friend, for example, of 4 to 5 years. We've always shared. I've always funnily enough, looked to him for career advice. Like, hey, I'm thinking of taking this job role at Rock Nation to launch this startup. What do you think?
Interesting.
Or, I'm working at Black Pills now. This is what we're up to. This is when he was at Silly Ignition Factory, for example. How can we collaborate? But outside of that, we've kind of always been mates and had a really good rapport.
Interesting.
And I've always known of his goals, dreams, and visions, and always believed in him first and foremost. So that's an example of where I've had an existing friendship and relationship. So I've been really, really lucky. And you hear those stories like, Jay-Z's got all of his childhood mates or the crew that he had in the early stages of his teenage years or 20s, and they're still all working in the business, like Tata, Jay Brown, Desiree, Perez, all that, and so like people keep, sometimes you're just lucky to have the crew early on, right?
Yeah.
Chauncey, for example, we were moderating panels as part of Digital Media Week. And I'll get to answering your question better, but I'm just giving examples of how.
No, I think it's good. I think this is answering it too. So keep going.
And it was kind of like we just sort of almost stumbled into one another. Hi. Did our little introductions. He's like, oh yeah, I'm about to moderate a panel. I was like, oh cool, well, I'm moderating after you. So I listened to his, he listened to mine. Both panels are relevant to our own careers.
Interesting.
And then it was kind of like, so let's grab drinks afterwards. I took him to the new Dumbo Soho House.
Okay.
It was a stunning day in New York. We sat there for 2 hours with his best friend Ryan, who was also, running an agency. And we literally, it just felt like the three of us had known one another for 10 years.
That's amazing.
And we had no context or history, but this intrinsic connection. And then it became a no-brainer. And then specifically with Chauncey, we've had all these really crazy, weird, synchronistic moments. And I won't bore you with the details, but like just really bizarre stuff. Even happened again yesterday.
Well, okay, give us at least one example, because now I'm curious.
Oh my God. So there's a big event that, there's a guy called John Platt, or people would know him as Big John in industry here. He's been in the publishing game with Warner Chappell for a long time. He's obviously moved over to Sony recently. They have a big, like black tie event, and it's like, $1,500 or plus a ticket.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, my friends at Black Box, Livia Tortella used to run Warner Music, and Brian at Black Box, were part of facilitating this whole dinner. I'm sitting with Chauncey at Soho House catching up, and he's like, I want to get a ticket. I want to go to that dinner. And I was like, babe, I can probably get you a ticket. I know the organizers. That very second, Brian from Black Box happens to ring.
Wow.
And he's like, oh, no, sorry, it was the other way around. Chauncey was like, I have these tickets. I want to get rid of them.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, let me just see if we can get rid of them through Brian. And Brian happened to have rung that randomly that very second. I was like, oh my God, this is who I want to be calling.
Wow.
So then they're like, yeah, we want the 2 tickets. And Chauncey and I hadn't signed the management agreement yet, but this is just the random synchronistic moments. So then we start going down this path of getting rid of these 2 tickets from a timely standpoint. It was like 2 days before the event, we managed to do it.
Wow.
Just so last minute and so randomly. And then we were just talking about a bunch of other stuff, and he was like, my best friend is, one of my best friends is Common, the rapper Common, who's obviously done a lot of acting. An hour later, I'm sitting, and so we're talking about that, but an hour later, I'm sitting with my friend from Bloomberg, random,
Okay.
And I was talking about, I'm about to, with my friend at Bloomberg, I'm about to sign Chauncey, and his best friend is Common. That very split second, one of Common's, most popular tracks plays overhead, like literally cue Common.
Cool.
Like just random shit like that,
That's crazy. Yeah, that's
and
cool.
We were in a TV meeting yesterday, and Chauncey, because he's been in the industry for so long, uses first name people only, so he'll say Clive.
Okay.
As opposed to Clive Davis, or Tony as opposed to Tony Braxton.
Got you.
And he's like, yeah, so Tony, blah, blah, blah. I was like, babe, you've got to get in the habit of referencing people's last names just so people understand who you're talking about. And so around the boardroom table, he's like, yeah, Tony Braxton. And then the guys at this TV company were just like, well, look behind you. We did Tony Braxton's whatever show that was, and we looked behind. There's this huge poster on the wall of Tony Braxton right behind us, and we didn't even see it. Just random things like that. It just goes on and on and on. Like, just I can't tell you, like, just so many. Anyway, so long story short, obviously, I think for me, it's an energy thing. So I'm super, like, I feel very connected to the universe, tapped in, whether you want to call it, to the source.
Sure.
The, universal energy, God, whatever.
Yep.
And I trust my gut. So I'm a big gut trusting human. And just because I actually know somebody, like, whether they've got a huge social following and are really talented in music, it doesn't necessarily mean that I would want to work with them in that capacity.
Sure.
There has to be a value exchange. There has to be a value add. And for the trajectory of OUT.LIER, for example, I want to make sure that everybody is in some way, shape, or form really complementary to one another. So I'm creating something with truancy that might end up being an opportunity for Chris Denson or vice versa, or whoever else. So making sure that the talent's complementary. I don't want to take on bite off more than I can chew. I want to be incredibly hands-on and incredibly proactive. So I think you've got to work out what role you want to play in these people's lives. Do you want to create? Do you want to be a proactive manager whereby you're really collaborating with these people hands-on in a day-to-day capacity to create and bring projects to life, versus do you want to just occasionally answer the phone if and when there's a contract that needs to be negotiated on somebody's behalf, versus whatever else? So I think it's really important to understand your as a manager, your greatest skill set, what type of relationships you want to have. You might speak to one talent every single day, another you might speak to them once every 10 days.
Right.
Like, where do you want them to be? Like, do you want to have developing acts, or do you just not have the time, energy, propensity for that? Do you want to make sure that you have two people that are already super established, versus are you willing to really invest the time, effort, and energy over a year or two with probably very little, possibly to no financial return, with the hope that that obviously something happens. So I think, my advice would be to trust your gut, work out who you are, what role you want to play, ensure that you have a very intrinsically connected relationship with your talent, work out what the value exchange is between the two of you, and really find a niche, so that the clearer you become, as opposed to just taking people on for the sake of it, the greater results you can earn and generate, the more fun it's going to be for the both of you, and that you can go on that journey together and feel really, really rewarded and fulfilled from that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the core of it, you just be who you are and put yourself out there, go to events, network, meet people. Fair to say?
No doubt. I think you have to have a role in culture.
Okay.
I don't give a shit, like, how old you are. Like, if you're a 65-year-old manager that's been in the business for a long time versus, someone who's starting out at 22, like, you have to understand what the cool kids are doing. You don't necessarily have to be immersed in it,
Okay.
but you've got to understand part of the traditional aspects or sides of the industry. So, how I mentioned I worked in the talent agency side. It's a very different business from management. Understanding what all sides, like the traditional, the older school, the more corporate side of the business, versus what's happening in culture, what are the new wave things, what are the kids talking about, and how is that relevant to brands, how is that relevant to your clients. Definitely, and don't kill yourself. You don't need to be out there 24/7 knowing every Tom, Dick, and Harry, but always seek out those that are more successful than yourself.
Yeah.
I've always been way more curious with not necessarily what are all my peers doing. I don't give a shit, really, what you're doing. I want to know who I can connect with in the room that's way more successful than me, way more interesting, tried and proved, over and above whatever I've done and achieved. And I prefer to have friends in industry that might be older, might be more successful, that I can really learn from. And I always try and see everybody as a mentor. I mean, I do have friends that are young as well, like 23-year-old DJs, or kids that are like party promoters, or plugs that are like early 30s or late 20s. And now I'm starting to sort of maybe show my age.
No, it's all good.
But like, being connected with these people that are showing up in culture, and that they're the ones, use them to do all the work for you. So I've got friends that are like go to 2, 3, 4 parties a night.
Interesting.
That's their job. That's their industry. But leveraging what's happening and being able to tap into that resource. So
Interesting.
seek out the right resources. Make sure that you've got different friends, different connects, different mentors on different sides of the fence in different areas of the business that you can sort of tap into so that you don't have to be, everything to every man and his dog. That's not what it's about. Like, try and be a little bit more strategic in the relationships that you bother to nurture, and just don't waste time on time wasters. Like, just don't waste time on those where there's not going to be mutual respect or value exchange or interest in the development of your career. You want to make sure that people see your potential and are willing to give you time based off of that, because they know that one day you will find success, and they're happy to be a part of your journey at the early stage of your career.
Sure. I think to your point, a lot of people that are maybe older than you that have been successful, if they can see that you're passionate and you're genuine and you're honestly trying to maybe not suck a ton of their time, but maybe actually ask for true guidance on something, I think majority of people are willing to help you out, or at least take a coffee, or maybe connect you with somebody in the right,
and do that. Like, oh my God, I can't tell you how many, I would literally say thousands, like hundreds and thousands of like people I've hit up and sought out over the years to say, look, I mean, Jason Weinberg is a perfect example.
Okay.
I sought out, like, who are the top dogs of industry. Okay. Jason Weinberg is the owner and founder, CEO of Untitled Entertainment Group, home to some of the biggest celebrities in the world. They are unequivocally one of the very best and the biggest talent management and entertainment companies in the world.
Sure.
And I managed to track his, get his email, hit him up. He actually responded so quick, and I was like, got nothing to lose. And I was like, what have I got to lose? And I sent a really cheeky email, something along the lines of some comment about Naomi Watts. And over the years, I've been often referred to us looking very similar, right? Especially when I was acting.
Sure.
I was kind of like the younger, indie film version of her when I was doing the film roles and all that, on a much smaller scale. However, so I've always had this thing for Jason and his company, and like the fact that he founded, like, he was the one really responsible for nurturing Naomi's career. And we're still in contact today, but like, he's connected me to different managers within his business, and always been there. And I ended up putting my friend Mojan Aria, who won the Heath Ledger scholarship. He's an Australian, actor that's, and I don't know, his parents were, anyway. And he won, and I wrote back to Jason. I said, Jason, remember I put Mojan on your radar 4 years ago as an actor. Okay. He's won the Heath Ledger scholarship. Now, all of a sudden, all the agents and managers that I put Mojan on the radar of many years ago now wanted to sign him because he'd won this award. So Jason ended up signing him. I really wanted to push that relationship through for Jason. And now Mojan's killing it. He's been working in big film and TV roles nonstop, back-to-back, ever since.
That's amazing.
He signed that relationship. And it's nice for me that I've been able to actually add value, do something for Jason without needing or wanting anything in return.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But that's a relationship I'll hopefully nurture for life.
Yeah.
And he's a top dog. So it's kind of like, you want to find these people that, again, will always be there for you, but like where you can add value to as well,
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think not everything you do every second of every day needs to be for money. Like you just mentioned, you made a good connection because you believed in somebody, and who knows where it'll go, right? But you didn't necessarily do it to say like, oh, I need to make X amount of dollars off this, right? You might make money. You guys might do something at some point. Yeah. You just made a genuine connection and it worked out. The other thing I was going to mention is you would be surprised for people listening, if you reach out to certain people, how much you will actually get a response. Like I remember I reached out to this was a number of years ago, almost a decade ago now at this point, but he was the design director at Google at the time or something like that. And he literally, I sent him my portfolio and I said, here, can you have a look at this and give me some feedback because I'd love to work for you one day. And I thought, I'll never hear back, right? Like, just crazy. He literally wrote me back 4 or 5 paragraphs of stuff. On this project, I'd want to see this. On this project, I'd want to see this, this, and this. And he probably spent at least 30 minutes on the email to me. And I was just blown away because obviously these people are busy, right? Like, who am I? But so it sounds like I have a number of those stories where I've reached out to somebody and they write back, and it's not like a 2-second thanks email. It's they actually write you back a response, and you're like, wow, this person took the time, and so you never know what's going to happen.
100%. You never know. You never know what is around the corner,
Sure.
and around the corner, or what opportunity is going to find you, or what like is either going to fall in your lap or that you're going to fall in its lap. And you just have to keep that openness and that trust. And I was just even speaking about this concept with my artist recently. Like, you just never know how close you are or far away you are from success.
Yeah.
You could be just, like, say in a musician's capacity, struggling, writing for so many years. It could just take one song, one collaboration, one meeting that leads to you creating a song with that person and it being a hit, which leads then to you having this being able to open every friggin' door that you want in industry. So then all of a sudden the 10 or however many years you've been slogging it out overnight literally can pay off. And that's why, you hear all these famous people say, they're an overnight sensation. Absolutely not. The majority of the time, these people have been working at it for a very, very, very long time.
Totally.
And have gone through,
Interesting. So where do you want to kind of take your company or career, or do you just want to see what happens and chase your kind of passions and follow your gut?
I mean, I want to achieve, as much success as possible. I want to successfully.
Is that tied to money? Just out of curiosity, like, do you have a money goal, or success to you money?
Like, I've never been that driven, or I've always been focused on like finding my dream career. And I mean, look, if I was all about money, I would have taken a very different path,
right?
And probably chase different opportunities. It's not about that for me. However, having said that, obviously, I would like to achieve maximum success for my clients and myself, and that has to equate to money too. But like the creative satisfaction and satiation is like critical for me as well. So yeah, I mean, I really want to EP some, really successful TV projects, and just see, obviously music's one of my greatest, if not my greatest loves.
Sure.
I want to obviously see my talent, reach there and find their fullest potential, and be rewarded. And again, if that's the case, then of course it's going to end up equating to money. So it intrinsically is related to that for sure. I don't want to have a big company. I'm not trying to grow into becoming the next Untitled or Management 360 at all. I'm so happy to say super slim. I've always had this dream of I'd love to have an associate producer and an EA and engage a publicist PR, which I've got already.
Got you.
And just have a very small boutique team, because at the end of the day, one thing I have learned is there's this illusion of, you sign up to a big agency, and I've had actor friends who have had very successful careers, say, in Australia, that have gone, oh my God, I've signed to the very best management and the very best agency in the world, in the country, and literally not get one audition in 3 years.
Wow.
So
crazy.
So it has nothing to do with, are you signed to the biggest and the best? You've got to say it's about the relationship. And sure, you've got to have the contacts and experience and know how to do the business development side of things and identify the right opportunities and have impeccable follow through, and project management across the board.
Sure.
But having that hands-on access to your talent and that hands-on relationship, that day-to-day stuff, for me is critical. I'd never want my talent to be just another cog in any machine or get lost in the portfolio of me having 50 other people that I'm managing. I really want to find, really great success. and create success with my clients, as opposed to sitting back waiting for them to do all the work and me just benefiting off it one day.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting to hear. I find like a lot of people, especially that are successful, obviously they want to make money to live, but it's not the driving factor, right? It's the passion about the craft or whatever they're doing. And then usually the money comes afterwards or shortly afterwards. Have you found that?
Yes, exactly. Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
So it's I've heard, I've been, I think that was the thing. I was like, between us, like, I don't want to say appalled, but I was so like, oh my God, I've seen a lot of agents just completely ignore their clients' calls day after day, week after week, like completely just block them and not make time. I'm like, this is so counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, like, interesting.
But again, like, the agency land is very different from management. Management
Sure.
is based on the relationships, right?
Yeah.
So hence why I'm choosing this path as opposed to wanting to work in an agency environment. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to I don't know. You want to be able to deliver. I've seen a bunch of other managers that I've known in industry sit on panels, and I was also quite appalled to hear they're like, yeah, I mean, there's basically nothing we can do until our talent like makes it.
Oh wow.
The talent has to make it. That they have to do all the work. Look, I to some extent I understand where they're coming from, because it takes so much time, so much energy, so much proactive outreach and development and work to create the opportunities, right? With no guarantee of outcome. Okay, so that's on you. That's a risk you take. But at the same time, like, where's the joy in just sitting back, waiting for someone else to, like, how is that creative? How is that proactive? How is that collaborative? How is that a real relationship with your talent? How is that interesting? I mean, for me, it's not. But this is obviously each to their own, and maybe that's my degree of naivety. Maybe I will turn around in a year's time and go, you know what? Don't even bother investing in anyone not having already banking, $500,000 a year. Like, just find that successful client and just, I don't know. So. Yeah, but I'm quite surprised to hear so many managers they just sit back and go, just have to wait until they crack success. Then I'll invest. Then I'll show interest in my client.
Interesting. But we're coming to the end of the show, so let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about all the stuff that you're involved in.
That sounds great. Absolutely. So you can find, so the business is OUT.LIER, so OUT.LIER co, so co.co. The content platform and radio show is OUT.LIER.tv.co. My personal Instagram and Twitter handle is my full name, Georgii Speakman, spelled Georgii, Speakman, Speakman. And then the OUT.LIER handles is actually OUT.LIER Co TV, as opposed to OUT.LIER TV Co. So OUT.LIER Co TV is the Instagram and Twitter handle for the content side of the business. That's about it.
Perfect, Georgie. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Likewise, thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to meeting you when you get to LA and talking further.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much for having me, Pam.
Thank you.
Okay, lots of love.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.